Well, hey, we're back. We're at Fort Frederick, and so far it's been a lovely day, save for some wind that we're all trying to kind of stay tethered down. But yes, and I am back with state your name for the lovely
Hi.
people.
I'm Delise Sayers. I am a bookbinder.
Great. And how did you become interested?
Well, actually, I have a degree in printing and work in the printing industry.
Nice.
And part of my love of history, I started collecting all these old iron presses and 300 cases of type and so forth. And then one day I wanted a blank 18th century book to write my journeys in the woods.
Okay.
And there wasn't any around. So part of the antiques that I collected were bookbinding equipment.
Very good.
I started messing with it. Found a master binder who was a historical binder, and she studied under her for 12 years before I broke out on my own to do this.
Yeah, cool. And how long have you been in business?
About 18 years, I think.
18 years.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Something
And
like that.
you do a lot of these market fairs, I assume.
I try to.
Yes.
I don't get to the East Coast as much as I'd love, but yeah, I do. And then I work a lot with museums like Monticello, Williamsburg, stuff like that.
Oh, nice. Very good. And where do you hail from originally?
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas.
So coming to
There
Fort
you
Fred is a bit of a
go.
wagon ride.
Yes. So before we were talking about your humor section.
Oh, yes.
And yes. Now, what do you think, like, because we were discussing about how people will take something that was supposed to have been humorous and they'll think it was serious. Like, what do you think is the most outrageous thing that people have believed that was supposed to be satire back then, but...
Yeah, the one that I get most comments is Swift's Modest Proposal.
Okay.
Back when England was highly populated, there was a lot of political discussion on how to bring down the population, and so Swift, in his great satirical wit, proposed that we eat children to cut down the population. And he does his modest proposal. He talks about how to feed them, to fatten them up, and the best way to roast them or to bake them. And unfortunately, a lot of people will read that and they're horrified. Cannibalism. Oh my gosh.
No, they did that back
yes,
then.
They don't realize that
was
Swift
normal.
Yes. And so once I tell them the story, then they kind of go, oh, I get it. Because many of the solutions that the government wanted to do were just as silly and unreasonable as consuming children. So,
absolutely. And people back then did have a sense of humor. They weren't like these buttoned up, like,
and
I do declare, like,
and the humor ran from G to X.
X-rated. And and a lot of people seem to be really, really shocked when they hear that. Like, they actually had some rather X-rated humor back then. Yes.
Oh, yes. There's actually several engraving books that show some rather explicit engravings.
Oh, yes.
In the 18th century.
Yes.
So, yeah, they were not as pristine in times that we pretend to think they are.
No, absolutely not. And your lovely wife, she's on break right now.
Oh, yeah, I had to give her a break.
Yes, of course, gotta, let her eat sometime. But, she mentioned this King George III's erasable memorandum, and she told me to ask you about it.
Oh, absolutely.
The story behind that.
And I'll tell you what, basically the story is that a friend of mine sent me an inventory from a person's estate in 1760 in Michigan, in which it listed an erasable memorandum. And he, thinking I might know what it is, he had contacted me, and of course I didn't, but like a hound dog on the scent of a squirrel, I chased after it.
Of course.
And I discovered what it was, is that they had come up with a special coating that could be on leather that's flexible.
Yes.
And that if you were to write on it, and then when you were finished with your note, a little moisture on a cloth, and away the pencil comes off of that coating. And then that way you can erase and write and write and erase all the time.
There you go.
And King George III, in my research I discovered, he owned one. And so what I did is I contacted the British Library Museum, because that's where I traced this 1880s notation of it.
Yes.
And they sent me photographs so I could replicate, which the book has a nail pencil that holds it closed, and then when you take the nail pencil out, then you can write on the pages.
Very good.
This is the same size and everything King George III carried, with the exception is he is the king.
Of course.
So he has a lot more gold on it than I do. This is only a bit of 23 karat gold.
Yes. Wow.
But this is the recipe I got from a 1560 recipe, and it took me a year and a half to master. And just to do the leather that goes in here takes a month and a half in process, from the tanning of the leather to the coating and the scraping and the polishing that has to be done.
Yes.
And fortunately, though, I can do about a half a hide, which takes care of a number of these books, but it does take a month and a half to produce.
Cool. Wow. Yeah. Awesome. So one more question, then I'll let you get back to the customers. So where can people find you, like on the web, if they want to, if they're interested in maybe purchasing some of your lovely wares here? Yes.
Well, you can find me either on Facebook as the Colonial Printer and Bookbindery. Or you can find my website, which is www.colonialprinter.net.
Awesome.
And you can find over 140 products on the site.
Very good. And you'll ship and all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I do custom orders. I delivered 3 custom portfolios to this weekend that one lady does music, another man does maps. And so you name it. And if you need help in figuring out what you need, I can do time periods from the 1400s through the 20th century.
Oh, very good. That sounds great. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. And enjoy the rest of Fort Frederick.
I will.
All right, thank you. So this year I bought quite a bit from the Colonial Printer and Bookbindery. So I got this inkwell here, and the reason why I bought this is because I thought this would be an excellent display for my June 23rd presentation on the history of basically writing with a quill and inkwell, the history of paper, the history of ink. And I am also, and this is by the way at the Neville House where I am site director, and I was also, in addition to the presentation, going to allow people to try their hand at writing with a quill and inkwell. So I got this because I thought that this would be great for display and great so for people to see, you know, what actual inkwells looked like. And also here's some pocket ink where I could mix up my own ink. I am also going to mix this ink up for the presentation and event on June 23rd. And the rest of these I got for my own research, as well as, you know, just for fun reading. This is actually a receipt or recipe book. She was a confectioner to Her Late Majesty Queen Anne. It's Mrs. Mary Eales's receipts, and there's all kinds of really nice recipes in here for making jam, drying out berries, things like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of what's in here. And these are a couple of more humorous works. And because yes, he does have a humor section, which which we talked about in the interview. And this is the enormous abomination of the hoop petticoat, as the fashion now is and has been for these 2 years, fully displayed in some reflections upon it, humbly offered to the consideration of both sexes, especially the female. All right, and then this is a dissertation upon headdress, and basically covering the vindication of high-colored hair and those ladies on whom it grows. So, yes, so this is, yes, they like we said in the interview, they did have a sense of humor back then. They did do satire back then, and it's just a little blank book. I figured you can't have too many of these, and this is a print that, yes, was actually quite popular back in the day. So yes, that's what I bought from the Colonial Printer and Bookbindery, and I hope you enjoyed the interview, and definitely check out his stuff, and I'll see you in the next episode.